what is really important is that pleasure is a type of energy, just like anger is a type of energy, just like joy is a type of energy. And all of these emotions are fuel because basically, like on the neuroscience level, emotions are just sensations given meaning by your brain.
Look into his eyes. They're the eyes of a man obsessed by
success.
Eyes that mock our sacred institutions. Bedroom eyes, they call them in a bygone day.
Sex desire is the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, men develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. So strong and impelling is this desire for sexual contact that men freely run the risk of life and reputation to indulge in. When harnessed and redirected along other lines, this motivating force maintains all of its attributes of keenness of imagination, courage, etc., which may be used as powerful creative forces in literature, art, or in any other profession or calling, including, of course, the accumulation of riches. Napoleon Hill.
Welcome to the Little Blue Pill for Business podcast, where it's all about getting it up and keeping it up. And yes, we're talking about revenue and profits. We all know that it's about 6 inches between your ears, so I interview some of the hottest people in the industry that are blowing and going so we can help you get in on some action. So if you like a little tongue-in-cheek and not just physically, you are in the right place. Today, we are jumping in bed with my most amazing guest, Dr. Fanny Leboulanger. I'm sorry, but you have to have a French tongue to say that the right way, and we will demonstrate her French tongue in a moment. But Fanny, Dr. Fanny, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Awesome. So give us a highlight of who you are and what you do for business.
So I'm Dr. Fanny Leboulanger. If you want to laugh, that means the baker. Let's put that out there. And I am a sassy French physician trying to actually name myself as a sexual wellness and aliveness igniter or sex, love, and relationship coach, or just, embracing the multifaceted of the business that we all have as entrepreneurs.
Nice. So other than your French, what made you decide to go into the sex side of the business? Because that seems like quite the stretch.
I have a basic story, like a lot of people, of life knocking at the door once, twice, and then on the third time, life throws you off. So during med school, I was diagnosed with epilepsy out of the blue, like 2 seizures, no sign, like no pre-signs of anything in my childhood or anything. And so I had to do some digging. I started self-development, self-inquiry, started yoga, meditation, and I was obsessed with self-development, with improving myself and becoming the best version of myself until a loved one told me, "You're working so hard on yourself. How come you're still miserable?" Ouch, but true. And so I started to think and look around like, what is actually happening? And a few things happened at the same time in my professional life. I met a woman who was 34 and whispered, like, "Doctor, I think I'm broken. I've never had an orgasm." So I'm a GP, but I'm practicing gynecology on a daily basis, like the pap smear, the birth control, and the IUD and things like that. And so at that time, I had so many patients I had no answers for. People I told, "Okay, you're going to see a sexologist." And then sexologists first have 6 months of waiting time. And part of me was like, there's something wrong in here. Like having to send my patients to a sexologist like 3 out of 4 almost, there might be something deeper. And on a personal life as well, I was actually really sick of getting my orgasms from my partner. He's amazing. I love him. And yet, the part of me was like, this is not, like, no, how come? So I started to do some research for me and for my patients That's when I met the work from the woman I studied under. Her name is Lila Martin. She's amazing. And so I tried it on myself. I pursued this coaching certification as well and studied really hard. And I'm really happy that it brought so many more skills that are useful in my practice, but as well in my coaching business. And the good thing about this practice and learning the methods and the sex magic and things like that is that you can do anything with it because of many reasons I'm sure we will discuss in a second. But really, when you address that and when you use pleasure to heal, suddenly it gets easier in your business. You'll still get some hot shit because that's what we have in the business, but you have more tools and you're more equipped to deal with that.
So we're really glad that you studied hard. Let's just get that out of the way. So when it comes to one, I've never heard of a sexologist. So one, what is that? And like, so peeps, if you're as you're listening to this, we will be getting into kind of how this all relates to business and how it brings it up. But I want to get some of the background on this because I think it's fascinating that there's an entire industry and a professional industry teaching women about sex, which seems really weird that it's just something that should be natural. It's an instinct that we have. Why is there an entire industry studying why we're not having orgasms and or like why it's just not working the way it should be?
Yeah. It's so and in study an industry that studies that and that also creates solution for women to empower themselves and also step out of the conditioning that we've been put in, the good girl syndrome with patriarchy around and many things that just help us to show up as a whole person. And that changes everything from how you feel in your body image, the inner the your self-talk and how you feel in your mental health. And that goes with your relationship as well because you're showing up from yeah, again, a place of a whole person taking responsibility and also bringing back to people what's their shit as well. And that also influences your business. When you show up from this place of I am whole, I know my shit, I'm gonna make mistakes and I still need to learn from amazing people, but like me, alchemize that through my own filters. Also allowing yourself to give yourself grace and alchemize um, what has been preventing you to be successful in your business. Like one of the things my teachers said is like I eat shame for breakfast. Like alchemizing shame with pleasure is really, really helpful, especially in business. Regarding your first question about what's a sexologist, so a sexologist is a doctor who did like other training, a supplementary training in sexology. And a sex therapist is someone who did that, but who's not a doctor. And then there are people who are like sex, love, and relationship coaches or sex coaches and things like that. So people who studied not like who studied sex and sexology, but outside of something recognized by universities and things like that. And personally, I had looked at the supplementary training and it was like, oh, well, something again written by white old men who think they have all figured it out. So I'll pass.
Which again seems very bizarre. But on that note, is this something that affects men as well, or just not to the same extent as it does to women?
I think, oh, yeah, men definitely have their own conditioning and traumas and things to process, especially regarding what's considered being a real man and emotions. And even if things are getting better, it's, I'm, I really feel that patriarchy, even if it's really detrimental to women, it can also, there is some part that is detrimental to men as well because when you operate from this conditioning of I'm gonna be strong and I need to succeed, that also prevents you from getting into, some people call that the feminine side, and I kind of disagree with this polarity of feminine and masculine side, but sometimes it's just interesting to consider it that way. The the intuition, for example, just honoring that you are a whole being too as a man, and that you're not evil, in that yes, of course, you are a part of a certain system with certain privileges that women have not. When you access this wholeness that we mentioned earlier, you can become an advocate for yourself and for the women you love and from the people from minorities that you care about. So overall, it is about all of us.
Nice. I love it. Well, and keep in mind, peeps, I have nothing against manly men. Love them too. And I think there is really an issue with the idea that they can't fail. And I think it really comes down to you're not allowed to fail. And whatever that might look like. So whether it's you can't cry, you can't show emotions, you can't not make money, you just can't fail. And that doesn't allow us to learn. We have to be able to fail. It's the premise of growth and self-expression and fulfillment and everything is this idea that you're going to trip and fall on your face. And it's like, yes, you are. It's kind of how it works.
I love that.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And these tools are really helpful for everybody.
Nice. Nice. I love it. So let's get into the tools and and what it means to kind of embrace these ideas.
I think one of the best tools to start with is the breath, because overall, self-evolution and basically life is kind of basic. It's about mindfulness and getting back to the present moment in whatever shape or form. Maybe for you, it's meditation or sex. Like some people, and I love that, say that sex is an active form of meditation because pleasure is alchemizing and helps you look at what your conditionings are and what is really going on behind what's going on. And it's really pleasurable. And if you want, you can also use that and use this connection to the pleasure to really go forward into inner energy work or connecting to something bigger than you.
Well,
So
and to me, it
all of
totally
them,
makes sense because it's probably the one thing where you are 100% focused on something pleasurable.
Yeah.
So in the whole argument of there's people that are that will move towards pleasure in order to reach their goal, and other people that will avoid pain to achieve their goal. And to me, avoiding pain in order to achieve your goal is a very arduous way of achieving things, and you're always in a state of stress. Whereas with orgasm and getting moving towards pleasure, you at least have this moment of relief, and it's like, and you just get to relax after the tension of it. But the tension of it is still a good pleasurable tension, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah.
when it comes to kind of having this moment of being able to just focus 100% of your attention on what you like, what you want, what is pleasurable to you, like how in your experience and studies why is that so important from your perspective?
First, because everything else that we've tried has failed. And there are many sources about how to or what to do on the internet, in books, in magazines. And yet, people have been miserable for so long in this domain. So I love this quote from Einstein that says, I think it's being crazy is doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result. So it's really important just because it helps us try something new. And when you try something new, as you mentioned, even if, when you try something new, it may be because you avoid pain, but also because you avoid circling what you've been doing until now. And what is really important is that pleasure is a type of energy, just like anger is a type of energy, just like joy is a type of energy. And all of these emotions are fuel because basically, like on the neuroscience level, emotions are just sensations given meaning by your brain. Like you can have an hot anger, you can have a cold anger, you can have your heart pounding because you're angry, but also because you're emotional or because you met someone and have butterflies and things like that. So overall, it's just about feeling the emotions and learning how to play with them. So detach them from the story, which is something that we really love to do in our business, for example. So detaching them from the story, using them as fuel, and noticing that since it's an inside fuel, you can play with them like you have control, and you have control in a different way. I think as business owner, it's about, at least for so many of us, myself included, it's about having control or thinking that we have control in trying to play the game of I want to have more control. And the thing is, we have little idea of what is possible, just like what you mentioned earlier about building something from avoiding pain really narrows what you have available. And I lost my train of thoughts. Where was I going? Pleasure, emotions, energy, fuel. Yeah. And when you have that, when you have access to that, you're noticing that you can play with them because you're more than your emotion. So you can increase the volume, you can decrease the volume, basically like a radio thing that can rotate if you want more or less. And it feels empowering, whether it's in your life or in your sex life or in your business.
Nice. And is that why you're starting with the breath? Because it's just one of those things that's kind of, well, it's you can control that. You can up the dial, you can down the dial, and I think people are kind of familiar with the breathing aspect of it, whereas they may not be familiar with feeling other parts of their body, which sounds weird, but
Yes,
I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that don't realize that they're feeling something.
yes. And also because it's something easy to start with. Because bringing awareness to the breath is the easiest thing to do when you start. You can become aware of your thought patterns. You can become aware of your conditioning, of your traumas, and things like that. And yet, starting right there can really be an opportunity for your brain to basically mess up with you. So, getting back into other thought patterns or gaslighting yourself or things like that. Whereas when you start with the breath, first you reclaim the sensations, as you mentioned. And so many of us are just breathing only with our chest without acknowledging that we have so much space available, so much inner space, so much breath and volume available. And this is, in the end, it's just a question of really basically building safety in your nervous system, like addressing the three pillars about safety, love, and belonging. And that goes for your personal evolution, that goes for your relationship, and that goes for your business as well. And I think starting with the breath allows you to find that inner space. So it allows you to quiet a little bit the dialogue from your brain, and with that, you can reconnect to your senses. And I think so many of us are stuck in this life autopilot, emotional numbness, also because we don't feel anything. We don't take the time to understand what feels good and what feels pleasurable in our system. Like this type of touch that I like, or this type of fabric, or this smell. The What I love sharing is the exercise. You can spend 5 minutes with a piece of chocolate. Like if you want to take the time, look at it, put it in front of a light, in front of another light, rotate it, look at it from the front, from the back, from the side, sorry, and then smell it maybe for 3, 5, even 10 breaths so that your nose is saturated from the smell, and notice if it creates anything in your mouth. Rub it next to your ears between your fingers, or feel it melting between your fingers, and then bring it to your lips. See, like, get in touch with the warmth of your lips and the cold of the chocolate and then listen to the sound that it makes when you crunch it, feel it melting in your mouth and things like that. It's really about acknowledging the presence of our senses and calling them back in so that you can bring the wisdom of your body in this dance with you, with yourself. And yeah.
Nice. So you mentioned when you're bringing the breath and that most people don't realize how much inner space they have to occupy. It struck me as a parallel to people don't realize how much room they have to move. They don't realize how much growth they have. They don't realize the opportunities, the resources. And if they can find kind of that space in their breath and see that parallel to the universe, it made such a clear to me impact of how this affects people in business, because they don't take up the space they need to take up. They aren't looking at the resources and the opportunities that they have. So when it comes to this, let's take a moment to draw out that parallel of how does this impact business for somebody that's completely like going, okay, at this point, I don't get it. What are you guys talking about?
And I would even go further than that.
Yeah.
How, especially in business right now, there are all of these marketing courses that teaches you the same for thousands of dollars again and again. Or even worse, AI generated marketing stuff that really put an emphasis of what I feel is the past world, where you could extract from people without giving second thoughts about who they are as humans. And I truly believe this model is slowly shifting, sorry. And with the breast, you reclaim that space. And that's what happens with with your business as well. I think the idea of taking space and owning that just because it's from you, it has value by itself, and it has value even if nobody's looking. It has value even if you're not quote unquote successful at the moment and you don't get the attention. And also acknowledge that this way of thinking, your marketing and your business requires way more time because you're building relationships from a human to human. And some people also don't resonate with that and like, no, girl, that shit doesn't like, I don't get it. I want to do something else. So, and if it works for you, great, go do that. But when for some of us, when we are stuck in all of these patterns and want to work on one-on-one human connection, just as I mentioned at the beginning about when you show up in your relationship as a whole person, when you do this work, that goes as well in your business.
So when people say it doesn't work in their business, I mean, how can it not? I mean, you can't make money without having a human interaction of some sort.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
you would think that the better the connections, the better the money.
Definitely.
No?
Yeah, definitely.
It does, to me, it doesn't even matter what you're selling. You could be selling Viagra and you want to make that human connection because that's why people buy it.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
doesn't matter what you're selling and for how much or wherever. So I don't understand that concept. I mean, I totally understand the concept that people don't want to connect with other people because they think that, oh, God, they're just so screwed up, that this is just going to cost me energy.
Yeah.
It's going to cost me tolerance. It's going to cost me patience. And I get that as well. And that's exactly what we're talking about is getting to those threads that cause you to not want to deal with people. Yeah.
And it's really about showing up from who you are instead of the perfect persona that has been operating for some time now. I think with the beginning and the blowing up of the growth of social media and now the blowing up of social media, there is this constant inner noise that is really inducing this. I'm going to show up from this perfect persona that has their shit figured out and so that I can help others. Truth, I think nobody has their shit together. So
Right.
when you embrace your humanity, and again, in my totally biased opinion, because I love my job, embracing humanity is about reclaiming pleasure and is about connecting to your essence, to who you truly are. First, suddenly it gets less boring as well, and less sanitized somehow. Like it's really common to, when you go on social media these days, you will see the same dance from many people and how everything looks the same. Whereas when you show up as a whole human, you're doing something different. And don't get me wrong, that seems simple, but it's not easy. And you're going to get the old paradigm right into your face. You're going to get everybody, like the people who follow you from this persona, will be like, what the actually is going on? And you'll get this constant pressure, just as we mentioned at the beginning, about them not being able to fail and things like that. When you get thrown by the algorithm or the people who you followed before, this success, or at least quote unquote success, it requires being brave. It requires trust. It requires owning that I am doing what works for me. And I am keeping that despite what you think, despite you showing me that what you are doing works better. And that is a journey of a lifetime, let's be honest.
Right. So I think this is a fantastic time to give us a Cinderella story so that people can really understand how this can affect them in their lives.
I think it's about emotion. I remember this woman that I've worked with, and she was into a place of, what did I miss? What did I do wrong? Like, what happened? Is life supposed to be just this? And when you dig deeper, you understand that there are so many roots from this, for this emotional numbness, this life autopilot. And what happens then is, when you bring all the tools with you, so if you go say hi to the emotions that you have suppressed for so long and lovingly, and because it was helpful at the time, put under the rug. Of course, it's scary. Like, like this anger that you've been suppressing for so long, and one day somebody presses your button and suddenly they're getting everything else that you haven't said before. And we cannot selectively numb. So when you suppress these emotions, then you end up being numb, and allowing to make peace with these emotions and build safety in your nervous system to actually be able to experience that. And more than that, allow yourself to experience them all these emotions, like the epicness of the good and the messiness of the shit. It really is empowering. And when you add that, the component to about pleasure, with pleasure being your birthright, something you're designed for, also because society keeps telling us pleasure is bad, or that we shouldn't pursue it because we're going to ruin our lives, and shaming people's pleasure is the best way to make sure they're compliant, because you're cutting people from their own source. And so when you do that, then they obey the the main narrative. When you add to that healing your inner child, because that's so important, or inner children, and looking at your family dynamics and allowing yourself to be able to allow yourself to hold the paradox, the I am feeling the shame right now, as in this sensation, and I can add the pleasure to the mix. So I remember being with this woman who went from a whole life autopilot, then getting through the journey of questioning what was going on with her partner, for example, and noticing like she didn't have pleasure for so long. Like for decades, she had been operating from an autopilot and something that had been created by social media by media overall and by what she thought was supposed to be a happy sex life. And that's what I love about my job. It's because it's that we're building a container that helps you figure out what you want and bringing you the tools to get in contact with that so that then you don't need me. And it really warms my heart when we arrive at connecting to pleasure and helping, yeah, noticing that pleasure can change your life, really.
So give us some particulars of how it changes life, other than being able to have orgasms, which I think is vitally important to the happiness of life. It's best stress reliever ever. Somebody tells you they got a headache, honey, I can't. You need to get rid of that headache. So other than that, like, how does it, have you seen it affect people's businesses? Have they grown? What's happened with that?
The shame disappears. Or when the shame comes, then you can play with it and you own your mess. Suddenly you show up on social media with way more confidence, and also owning that sometimes you don't have confidence, and you can also own and share with the people around you that you don't feel confident right now. There's really this thing about owning your voice, about, yeah, voicing things out, things that work. And in your business, I wish I could tell you that this woman manifested thousands of dollars just because she did a practice sex magic. First, I'm not a business coach and a manifesting coach, so I can't tell you about such results. And also, I truly believe that everything is way more nuanced like that than that. And yet, when you reclaim that, when you get this mindfulness, suddenly you're being way more self-aware, and you have a zero tolerance to your own bullshit as well. Like, you suddenly, what used to, I remember this person who was spiraling into people are gonna think, people are gonna think, people are gonna think. At some point, no, you notice that nobody cares, but you may know with your mind that nobody cares. But when you get intimate with the shame, when you get intimate with the fear, when you get intimate with all of that happened to you, suddenly you show up differently. And when you show up differently, you create real results. And when you create real results, suddenly your voice has way more. Not the case in terms of numbers of followers and things like that. But at the end of the day, what do you want? People who interact with you and who resonate with your work, or thousands of followers? Maybe you can have both. That's what I wish for you. But yeah, really building the confidence to hold the client in the container and hold yourself is, in my opinion, an amazing result. Again, biased opinion in your business.
Well, and peeps, I have seen this for myself when people were having difficult conversations in the boardroom. They'd get shut down, their ideas would get shut down, other people were passing them up for jobs, and getting in touch with one's sexuality can have dramatic changes. I've seen people within a matter of a week go from, being quiet and spoken over to commanding the room and getting their ideas heard and taken place. And everybody's going like, whoa, what happened to you? That was awesome. And being able to make money, to go from invoices not being paid up to 190 days to bills being paid immediately. It's like, I have seen dramatic changes in business. So yes, you can go from not making money to making millions with getting in touch with who you are and your sexuality, your power and your potence, And it doesn't mean you don't screw up and you don't fuck up. It means you do fuck up and you don't care anymore, which is extremely liberating and can be a ton of fun. So I know our listeners are going to want more from you. How did they start that journey with you?
If you want to have a listen to my own podcast, it's called Your Sexyfied Life, about stepping out of sexual numbness and boredom, life autopilot, and self-hate. And I really love doing that. I have my own Instagram and I'm practicing by myself, feeling safe in sharing your truth and actually owning that what you share is valuable, whatever. So it's at with Dr. Fanny. And I have my free ebook, which is called Essence, Awaken Your Body to Reclaim the Pleasure of Being Alive, which is the best way to start your journey. In my opinion, biased because I wrote it. But,
but it's a very good biased opinion. Awesome. We will have all of Dr. Fanny's links in the show notes. So go ahead and scroll down, open up in a new browser, because you know we're not done yet. So Fanny, I can get to ask you, at what point in life did you know that you were special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
That's a very interesting question. I think I didn't realize until I started. Like there was this moment with the medical system being what it is, and me being like, I don't want to be a part of that. This is not what I signed up for. I loved the medicine, like medical school. I enjoyed what I studied, and yet, and yet, for example, like when you see someone with their veins of on their belly being so visible, that means they already have the cirrhosis, so it's too late. And so what we see on the regular basis is, and it's for the good, people who have very little symptoms. And so we're basically blind. And so that started the idea of, I need something more functional, more holistic. And when I met this sex love and relationship first healing and was like, I want to do that. Maybe that was the moment that started it. Like, I want to do that. And at the moment, I can't do that in my practice for so many reasons. And I want to do that. So that's when it started.
I love it. You've been absolutely awesome. And I have thoroughly enjoyed my time. So now it's time for some pillow talk. Any last pillow talk for our peeps?
There's nothing wrong with you. There is the message that I love to share is that there's nothing wrong with you. However you think you're broken, however you think you're fucked up, there's nothing wrong with you. You're a smart being and you don't do anything stupid. Usually it's just about part of ourselves who didn't get the memo. They didn't need to protect us with that much strength anymore than we have survived. And yeah, you're normal. There's nothing wrong with you.
Love it. Dr. Fanny, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I know how valuable it is.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in today.
Peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec, your mistress in business. Thank you for being here today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your friends. We'd love it when we have a threesome. And I want to be here to help you get it up when you need me, because we love having you here in our life. Thank you for listening to the Little Blue Pill for Business podcast with your mistress in business, Michelle Nedelec. Why are you still here? Go to littlebluepillforbusiness.com and get your goodies. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to share it with somebody else that you know would enjoy getting it up in business after you subscribe to the podcast, of course, so you won't miss any future episodes. Now, check the notes for links. Oh, and only tell your wife if she's into this, entrepreneurship. And I'll see you both on the other side.